Alright everyone, this past January during my winter break I blogged about how AGDA had really given me the opportunity to spend way more time studying because I could sit at a desk for longer periods without straining my neck and having headaches triggered because AGDA had given me more oral volume, and I said that that additional oral volume had allowed me to get my tongue out of my throat and straighten my neck posture because, as you may or may not know, uh, a compressed neck posture, which is this, where the neck curves, that is a compensation for a blocked airway. When the airway is blocked because you have undersized jaws, uh, basically what happens is your mouth is too small, and so your tongue recedes back into the throat. And this happens especially while you're sleeping, but it happens throughout your entire waking life as well, without you even realizing it or without you having any real power over it, simply because breathing is the body and the mind's number one priority. And if breathing isn't occurring, then your body is going to adapt, or in this case maladapt. And the maladaptation is you crank your neck, you bend your neck, because that opens up the airway. And if you look at past videos, you'll find a dynamic MRI in my YouTube videos. It's one of my earliest videos, and you'll see that when the individual in that MRI compresses the neck, it opens the airway. For some reason, the kink, for whatever physiological reason, it's pretty straightforward. You just look at it and you can see it happening. But when you kink the neck like this, the volume of the airway increases, but not without paying a price. There's no free lunch. So when you compress the neck like that, it can result in, worst case scenario, a condition called occipital neuralgia, which is what I had. Basically, occipital neuralgia is compression of several nerves in the back of the neck. The greater occipital nerve, the lesser occipital nerve, and the third occipital nerve in particular. And these nerves, when they become chronically compressed and damaged over the course of years due to small jaws and ultimately a compressed neck posture, you develop this chronic headache condition. In my case, I was having headache symptoms that were emanating from the back of my neck. At its worst, 15 times a month or even more for some weeks. For some multi-week stretches, I would have headaches on a daily basis, and really, it's certain horrible periods that were psychologically stressful in particular. It was basically one long fucking headache. And this was handicapping, and it really prevented my ability to function normally. I couldn't hang out with people as much. I would have to go to bed at very specific hours so that I didn't wake up with a headache. I was basically tiptoeing my way through life. I was walking on pins and needles, just waiting for this occipital neuralgia to explode into an inferno headache. And so when I had migraine surgery in 2017, December, basically what migraine surgery is you go in and you physically decompress those nerves, the greater occipital, lesser occipital, and third occipital nerves. Basically, if they're trapped in scar tissue from a decade and a half or more of compressed neck posture, they become wrapped in this white leathery scar tissue stuff, and then because they're wrapped in that scar tissue, they're basically permanently irritated and they're permanently inflamed, and this results in nerve pain, occipital neuralgia, headaches. So the point of this video was just to say that AGDA back then had given me about a centimeter of forward expansion. And that centimeter of forward expansion allowed me to get my tongue up out of my throat. And this allowed me to stop having a compressed neck posture. Because my airway was not as blocked, because AGDA had given me forward growth, or forward expansion, I should say, because it really wasn't bona fide growth. It was expansion. It was movement of the alveolar ridge forward. It was, yes, this bony, cartilagey type tissue, which encases the front teeth and encases all the teeth, which they refer to as alveolar bone. It's kind of a softer type of bone, not like the maxilla itself, which is like a stone, a much more rigid and brittle and less malleable type of bone. But AGDA moved this alveolar ridge, it expanded it forward. It didn't actually grow anything, which is why I'm not calling it growth, I'm calling it expansion. But just in even this expansion was enough. It was oral volume, even though it wasn't skeletal expansion. It still was oral volume. It still did give my tongue some space to come forward, and so it alleviated this chronic compressed neck posture. The 3-foot tiger was no longer trapped in a 6-foot cage. I'm sorry, the 6-foot tiger was no longer trapped in a 3-foot cage. It was more like it was trapped in a 4 or a 5-foot cage. It was better, significantly better, but still too small, which is why I'm in MSE right now. And what I really wanted to say is this. So I started school back up today, and I hit the organic chemistry textbook hard on my iPad, literally just sitting there and crunching this chapter, reading the chapter and doing the exercises that are dispersed throughout the chapter, which is so important. You know, as you chemistry, especially organic chemistry, but all chemistry and physics for that matter, not so much biology, but chemistry and physics, they're more of a skill that you have to practice and not so much a memorization based subject matter. It's you have to do it to fully understand it. It's warrior knowledge, not scribe knowledge. You have to get in there and do the problems. And so I'm sitting there doing these problems throughout the chapter. They're called skill builders. And the way I start the problem is I say to myself, all right, time to hit that suction mew. Get that tongue up and seal those lips and hold that vacuum. And I would say to myself, I'm just going to hold this while I do this problem. And I had never done this before, just because really, I really can't emphasize strongly enough how much MSE has facilitated mewing for me. MSE has widened my maxilla. It has, especially in the rear, and that has allowed my tongue to really comfortably come up, the back third of my tongue to come up onto the maxilla, which is basically mewing, right? I mean, if we can gain the ability to keep the back third of the tongue pressed up onto the maxilla, that is like, man, that's high level mewing. It's very hard to achieve, and it was impossible for me to achieve without MSE. The MSE had to go in there and split that suture, move that create that intermolar width at the skeletal level in this robust way. I've got like 8 millimeters or so of split now, and so my oral volume is just, oh my god, it's so much more than I had before MSE. It's every day it keeps growing, and so today it was so easy for me to just hold my tongue up on the roof of my mouth while I was studying. And now this is a game changer. This is a game changer because for so long I've been restricted in my ability to accomplish more throughout the day because I'm not able to sit for long periods of time on the computer or in front of books doing basically desk-based thought work. My inability to sit for long periods because of headaches, because of occipital neuralgia, really limited me. But MSE, man, AGDA too, but MSE even more so. It's really allowing me to mew with a consistency that I've never been able to mew with before. And even during the hardest types of activities, in between socializing, which I talked about in a prior video recently, but also in terms of desk-based work, that intermolar width increase is so heavenly. It's really making me more comfortable as I work. My neck feels so strong and rigid because the tongue is just so nicely up there. I still need more. My tongue is still a little bit pinched through between my teeth, right? I really feel like I need another 5 millimeters, which is good because my MSE has a total of 12, and right now I'm at about 8, so I'm going to get about 4 more millimeters of expansion. I'm fucking pumped because it's going to get even better. But, so I just wanted to share that with you guys. And also, yeah, so that's my new practice. When I sit down to do a homework assignment, I play a game with myself where I establish a suction-based mew. I seal my lips. I move all the spit to the front of my mouth and then use my tongue with my lips sealed to move the spit backward to the back of my throat. And in doing so over and over again, I create a suction. And then on the last swallow, I swallow all of that spit down into my throat, And you'll see that when you do that, with the lips still sealed, with the vacuum already created, you do one last swallow and you move that saliva down the esophagus. Before you were just moving it to the back of the throat. With this last swallow, you move it down the esophagus, and at the back end of that swallow, the back of the tongue will come up powerfully. And you've got to hold that, catch that, not at the point where it's actually blocking your airway, but just a little bit in front of that. There's a spot where the airway is open and the back of the tongue is firmly pressed up on the roof of the mouth. And you hold that for as long as you can with your lips still sealed, with the vacuum still formed. And that's the game. That's mewing. That's hardcore mewing. So I'm going to keep up with that practice. Thought I'd share that with you all. That's about it for now. Peace out.